Hello, Tom Lavecchia here with a brief special birthday edition of the Armchair MBA. Wanted to jump on for a little bit. I wanted to do a little open mic night, but during the day, because I'm going to be celebrating tonight with family and friends. So just a little special birthday live. Let me drop a link below. And we are going to do a special open mic night. So let some people come in. Trying to give some updates on the show as to what's going on. The first is I'm interviewing Bobby Luisi today. Hey, New Beginnings. Let me give you a wrench. Hold on 1 second. I've been meaning to give add moderator. Beautiful. Wanted to add NB as a moderator. NB has been extremely supportive of the channel. And I know that I appreciate it, and I just want to give a shout out to you. So let me drop a link. So if anybody wants to jump in, Tommy Stiggs, jump in if you can. New Beginnings, you have your wrench. Kazoo, how are you, buddy? Obviously, welcome to jump in. Ramundi, Stiggs, Truth, thank you all for the well wishes. Let me block this. I think somebody's trying to send me bots, which is not going to happen. That's like a Bush League old school digital marketing tactic. Throw bots at it so you go out of terms of service, so they try to exclude your channel. Again, it's not a new thing. Serafino, grazie. And drop a link below. Do a little bit of a live session here today. So just want to give some updates. At 3 o'clock today, I'm doing a pre-record. Hey, BK Skip, you're welcome to come on as well. Doing a exclusive interview with Bobby Luisi and Paul Tanzo at 3 o'clock. We're going to be discussing, interesting enough, is the economics of cocaine. So, there's been a little bit of dichotomy. Is a Cosa Nostra involved in drugs? We have credible information from recently made men that said during their actual induction, they were told to stay away from drugs, and that was in New York, but let alone in Boston under Philly umbrella, that obviously was being done. So it's gonna be topical. Everybody kind of knows Bobby's story at this point. If you're not, check out the Bobby Luisi show. But we're going to be doing a live there. I want to see a Capo's version of it, what the economics are, how it's broken down, the business end. Where do the soldiers get involved? Are the kick-ups any different? Is the money any different? And I just want to deep dive and unpack that a little bit. I like the business of Cosa Nostra. That's why I do the show. And I think that's been a interesting topic. So that's number one. Number two, working on how old are you today? I am 46. I'm old, getting old, 46 years old. I got to lose more weight. I got to get back on the Atkins. So that's my plan for next year. So next year we'll be hopefully in better shape. Got a baby boy on the way. So I'm excited about that. Yeah, drugs and rats. So I think that what's interesting is from the business perspective, I think the Cosa Nostra didn't get involved as much with the cocaine and distribution for that reason. Bigger sentences, more government scrutiny. Although the margins are there, tend to stay away. I think that was probably a business decision than a moral decision. So with that said, it's just interesting why they didn't get involved as an organization, but he's going to share us, hopefully can share some information, share me privately about New York distribution, which is really, really interesting. I remember you being on print media before the pandemic. So I am actually, with the paper prices going up about 41%. I actually like digital. Digital has, as you know, probably progressed a lot. You could do like geofencing. I'll give an example. The security system I have has a geofence around. So it used to be like somebody has to open your door for it to go off. It geofences, so when somebody comes on, it takes a video and all the photos on stuff, and it also is able to kind of get in their phone too, which is pretty cool. But the same thing goes for marketing. I went to Walgreens the other day. I walked in, I walked out, and I got hit with Walgreens coupons on my phone. That's also geofencing. So it's used for security, but it's also used for marketing. So if you're looking to grow your business, Taylor, I would hold off on print for a little bit because print prices are high, paper prices are high, and the magazine will probably charge you more. That's just my perspective as a marketer. Feel better, Ramondi. With drugs and the mafia, my friend, is always do as I say, not as I do. No, I agree with that. But I was just wondering, from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and even 80s, there was a heroin network. Um, um, and why didn't they not insert? And maybe it's not really a different customer base in terms of distribution. Remember, I don't think, and that's Bobby. I don't think Cosa Nostra got into retail distribution of any of it, with the exception of some Lucchese guys, which I think John covered on the old show. But they just didn't get involved with Coke on a wider scale. Again, was that a missed opportunity business-wise, or was that the right moves? I hate to say this, but there's a lot of informants anyway. So if they didn't do it because of informants, I don't know if that was the right move either. I think it could have been a lot wealthier as well. And I hate drugs personally. I'm just talking from the business perspective. Thanks, Ryan. Feel better, man. This is rough. Everybody I know is sick. I'm not having a lot of people over today for that reason. I have a pregnant wife. I have a baby. I got to make sure they are well. And thank you for the well wishes. Thank you, Coach Rain. Good man. I know you watched the New Theory podcast. Thank you for supporting Jason. Jason's doing a really good job there leading that. Thank you. Yeah, this is going to be a good one, Patrick. I want to really, so like the other part is, we know Coke margins are insane. They're obviously in like the 90s. I think the only thing that's better is coffee, believe it or not. There's not much, or technology, but there's not much things that are out there that are like products that have better margins. So I'm just really interested to see what the margins look like. Now do you, cut it up and maybe give it to the local dealers and go to street level distro and get even more margin? Where's the money made? Where's the money not? And so forth. What are the expenses like? You need stash houses. You got to launder the money. What do you do with the money? I'm just really fascinated about the supply chain there. Okay. Hey, buddy, I haven't seen you in a while. How you been?
Hey, what's up, Tom? I've been wonderful. It's raining out here, which means my regular small business gets to provide me with a day off. So, yeah, I don't get to keep up on a lot of the stuff that happens on I guess we'll call it MobTube, but it's not really. But one thing I enjoy about you and a few others is that you try your best to keep it on to actual mob stuff.
Yeah. Thank you. Tommy, I have you jump on in a minute. I got a good friend on, JC, right now. JC, so what are the gross margins in weed? I think we talked about that. I want to have you back on. And what's your understanding of the gross margins on Coke? What are the differences?
Well, check this out. I found a money stat you'll really like. I was researching for the mob out here and what the kind of business profits were. I found a California state report that said in the late 70s, early 80s, the mob was making approximately $2 billion on illegal gambling in Cali and approximately $500 million on drugs. Keep in mind, this is when the 70s, late 70s, when marijuana, you could buy a lid, a big amount for $100, and it went much further. But yeah, $2 billion in the whole state. And the way that the state government was describing it in this report was that that California, in many ways, was like its own country to the mob, because it's it's like the size of England versus the rest of the European Union, the size of the economy, the fifth largest in the world. And there was a time where the mob had, all the illegal sports betting here. They had a lot of the craps action. They used to have boats out in the harbor in LA, just beyond into international waters, which the limit was a lot less back in the day. They'd have gambling ships. They would also have other types of party ships.
Yeah. Well, hold on. I wanted Tommy to jump on because you started mentioning gambling.
Big amounts, bro.
Which is his wheelhouse. So, Tommy, I can only speak from my era. I I would say half of the poker games I went to were connected. I'm telling you right now,
Yeah.
I will say this every time. I believe connected games are rigged. Don't go to them. They are right. All of a sudden, I'm probably at a 70% win rate, 60% win rate. I go there, I get cleaned out, all cold decks, all bad beats. Tommy, what was a landscape like? We'll get to drugs in a second. What was a landscape like gambling here outside the normal poker room, in your opinion? How did Jersey do it differently or the same versus California?
Well, California did what? What did they do in California?
Well, they had like off like shore boats.
No, we had them. We had them everywhere. We just had, not at that level, but they were everywhere. There were gambling rooms everywhere.
He's right. The same thing was here. It was everywhere you could find. That we had them in suburban homes out here. We would throw casino nights, and we would have it catered and have an open bar and party kind of atmosphere. Then there was times where it was strictly like drug dealer types and high roller criminal types. Those ones were, they didn't really worry about all that too much. They were more interested in the action, playing dice. Well, basically the games that aren't legal, the Indian tribes now have slots and they've got, blackjack, but they didn't have, regular blackjack, for a while. So basically any of the games that aren't legal, that's what they were doing.
I'm challenging Magelio to a heads up poker match, or anybody picks a heads up poker match to show you that I don't suck at poker, that they're rigged. Magelio, jump on, buddy, if you'd like. Tommy, how did, when AC obviously was, formed in the 70s, and then obviously, other gambling came around, how did that affect like I remember like Bloomfield Avenue, Kenilworth, New Jersey. So people still gambled illegally. It didn't matter.
Yeah, it didn't affect it. There was games all the time. My mother had games in her basement. She used to host a game. Then the next Friday or the next week, we would go to a neighbor's house. So it was still going on. It never changed. So, but, someone would take a trip down to Atlantic City, go play, come back.
Yeah.
You know what was big? They were taking bus loads from our area down to Atlantic City.
That I knew. Yeah. They would.
So that might have, that geared toward an older crowd. But the regular poker players and all that, they were busy. They were cultural and neighborhoodly oriented, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
So they were comfortable playing in a basement or in a club or in a traveling game. Follow me? So it didn't change much in that.
But what? So you look at in history, right? So you look at one thing with the mob, it was always kind of progressive in terms of business, right? They got ahead of many different things that are now legal. They were trying to set up shop in Cuba. They were successful. Obviously, there was a change of regime. They started Las Vegas, Atlantic City, not as much, but Las Vegas. Why weren't they ahead of the legalized gambling? Like, I don't know of any, prominent Italian-American legal or illegal businessmen that are controlling the app space. You know what I mean? Like, if you saw this 5 years ago.
Because the street way is a way that will never go away because you're getting your money on credit. If you can't pay, you go into a loan shark. So it's
cyclical. Yeah.
They don't want to be in that. They don't want to be in legal gambling. There's
even with it, they probably wouldn't be able to get in because the regulations and the background checks now. Back in the day, they were in it. There was guys out here that had casino action in Vegas and Reno and Tahoe, as did the East Coast and Midwest families. And, what happened, they were slowly removed out by the regulations from the Nevada Gaming Board. I know New Jersey has something similar, the Black Book.
Crazy.
And later the FBI obviously started ramping up things. And now they tried to get into Indian gaming in certain areas out here, down in San Diego in the early 90s. I think it was the Chicago or maybe the Detroit family. One of them, they were busted down there trying to get in on the concrete action, building the place, all kinds of stuff. Yeah. So
if they really wanted to be in
Lexi, they did something similar. Go ahead, Tommy.
If they really wanted to be in on it, they could get in on it. Maybe not in their name. But just like any other business, they could put a legit guy up front.
Right.
But keep this in mind: 100,000 winning your way through a casino take away 40% in taxes. I don't know what the taxes are, but it's huge. So 100,000 yield is going to get you only a 60,000 yield. Where on the street, 100,000 yield is 100,000 yield. And if somebody goes bad, it's going to the loan shark and they're making even more on it. So,
Yeah,
you know,
and he's right there. If you look at it too, the government fails with their tax system, and they're doing the same thing out here with the marijuana stuff. California's like,
But let me,
so high in tax that it's now staying prohibition level, just like gambling.
Yeah.
You overtax it, and it keeps it on the street still.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I wanna give opinion. I want to see what you guys think. Right, when I interviewed Gunner recently, he kind of gave me, well, I'm looking at my Gunner notes. He wrote, like, what I wanted to look at why the Detroit mob is so successful. I know tangentially, JC, you had some exposure there. And I wanted to really like deep dive why that was. And one of the things that has stood out to me, which I think what Italian Cosa Nostra does, and Sicilian Cosa Nostra, obviously that's Sicilian, and Dragara definitely does it, is cultivating assets, right? So Tommy, like, I know, like, I got a text today from a good friend of mine, and he's as straight as an arrow, so straight as an arrow guy, but has uncles and family members that are still heavyweights that are still out there, and he has nothing to do with them, right? My point being is, why didn't the mob kind of take like guys, like maybe legitimate guys, and put them in positions of power, whether it be like Detroit, again, cultivating assets? Why didn't the mob do that as much here in Jersey? Because I haven't seen that, to be honest.
Because it's a street mentality. It's so hard to break it.
Yeah.
It's just so hard to break it. Not we. They don't know any other way. I lived part of this life, so I do understand from the inside out. There's no other way to be known. It's just in the blood.
Interesting.
It's
in California, Tom. It was everything was cultivated, but that's because the way the West was settled in general, everybody came out at the same time, whereas back east, the establishment is there, and then the people immigrated to New York or Boston, and then they had to go from there. So like out here, one of the reasons why my area was an area where the Southern California, the Northern California guys met to do, hash out business, was because not just it was centrally located, but also because they had a corrupted police department. If you look at up until recently, actually, the police chiefs in my area were involved with Vice, and this is a city with 500,000 people. So it's not some small California cow town. This is like the 5th largest in the state. And so people have called me out by saying, hey, you have all kinds of pictures with you with the police chief. You have pictures with you with the mayor of your area. Yes, the reason being is because I was taught years ago that the real way to power is to control these politicians. You want to be the guy that pulls their puppet strings by having their money supply. That's why I got into political fundraising. If you can say, look, you can do what you want, but I can't guarantee the money's going to come in for your next campaign. Guess what happens? They do what you want them to do. Now, I'm not saying I corrupted my area. I'm just saying after I left all this stuff, I went into politics knowing that would be an area where a guy with my skill set would still do quite well. And so, yeah, I have pictures, and I'll start showing those pictures where it's me with, people who have real power in California. And, it is what it is. But you don't hear me bragging about it. I've been on YouTube the last year.
Wait, hold on, JC. I don't want to go too far off track.
But it is what we did in the Western USA, and you'll see it in the Midwest. And look how they did it back east. They still controlled politicians through bribery and threats if need be, but they didn't get into politics. So that's the difference. New Jersey, New York, they controlled them through outside means, whereas you get further west and it becomes more insider stuff.
Yeah. So what were the distribution gross margins? Just give me a percentage. I love you. You're like me. You answer a question maybe a little elongated like I do. I respect that. But gross margin pot distribution, you get it from your source, your distro, you get it over to your people over in Detroit. Gross margin, you get $1 and how much you're keeping on marijuana.
So if it's from Mexico back in the day, I could get it. I live about 6.5, 7 hours north of the Mexican border.
Yeah.
If I had a guy in San Diego at one point, he could get pounds for 200 to 300 each of decent quality Mexican brickweed.
So let's call it 250 a pound. Okay, and then what would you flip it for?
And you get it to my area, and it's about 400. So that's $150 difference just in California. Keep in mind, there's a second border patrol checkpoint north of San Diego that most people don't really talk about. That's the second one you got to get it through still. And you're not going to avoid it the way they have it set up. So that raises the price, even within my state. Okay, so back east, you take it to Michigan, that same pound is, I could get rid of for 1,200 easily at that time.
So hold on, you would pay 400 and flip it for 1,200.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a 75% margin. And then with you count for taxes,
you got to count
in real dollars. It's closer to.
Okay, check this out. Check this out.
Well, that's why I said.
You got to pay for Greyhound tickets, and you got to
hold on. I spent. That's why I said gross margin. We'll get into the
all right, the
cost of goods and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's the basic right there, and that's basically that 800 a pound is what you have to work with to get it back there. To take care of whatever cops you got to take care of.
No, I want to get that. We're just hold on.
What it is. Yeah.
Hold on. Only because I have ADD. We're sticking on gross. Hold on. We're sticking on gross margin for a second. Tom, you wanted to say something?
You see what you're doing? You're investing in it to get money back. And it's, the charges are high. That's why I'm dead against drugs for many reasons. You're destroying your own neighborhoods. You're desecrating your own people. It's just there's nothing good of it. And now you're adding to it. How much now you have to invest in it to get back on it, right? With gambling, all you need is a phone line.
Well, hold on. That's where I'm with you. Hold on. Then JC, give me your highest cost of goods. So you have the gross margin, transportation, paying people off. What are the other bigger expenses?
All right, keep in mind, this is strictly talking about weed from Mexico, not the stuff grown in California or anywhere else. So the brickweed stuff, the next cost, we used to pay about $1,000 to $2,000 to somebody to get it back there. A lot of times we would have attractive women do it because they're less likely to get searched on the Greyhound or the
on a load you would send, right? On a load you would send, and you spend a Gino. Was it a $50,000 shipment? Was it a $20,000? What percentage of that?
So let's say we bought 100 pounds at 200 a piece. That's $20,000.
Okay, so another 5% would be used for distro. Okay, I mean not distro, transportation. So that brings you down to 70.
For 100 pounds, I would pay a little bit more, but I always wanted to. I set it up where I'd pay them a bit up front, and I'd pay them the rest once they got it there.
No, I'm just trying to get the economics because I'm going to do.
Let's just say on 100 pounds, let's say we'll give them $2,000 for moving it.
So 10%. So you're down to 65% net margin. What other expenses are there?
Okay, really, just basic packaging materials because you got to wrap it up and you can vacuum seal it, stuff like that. That's not too much. And then the cost of a few Amtrak tickets or a few Greyhound tickets, or if you're driving it, the cost of gas.
No, I mean, so 65% net margins are essentially good. Now, Tommy brings a good point. It holds bigger charges. There's more exposure legally. Would you park 10%, 15% slush fund, keep it retainer for your lawyer? What percentage would you keep aside for possible legal exposure?
Well, for the average case, the average drug case, you better have about $10,000 to maybe $30,000 saved up. Wow. Most of the time, if they're catching you at that level, they probably have a lot of stuff on you. It makes it difficult, and so your lawyer at that point is all about getting you a decent plea deal that keeps you from snitching and gets you, in and out, because you're probably not going to beat most drug cases. It is what it is now.
And they're typically going to be federal, and you're going to get charges of going over state lines and trafficking and a lot of different things.
Exactly.
Okay. So hold on. I want to beat them. You're not going to beat them, and you got to do what you got to do. Well, hold on though. 60% gross margins from a business perspective. I'm sorry, net margins. is really attractive, right? So now you go over to gambling. Remember, Tommy, you have to, if you're a smart book, if you have 100,000 on one game on team A and 5,000 on another,
Yeah.
you can't gamble. You got to lay that off.
You gamble too. The bookie gambles also.
Yeah, but I'm talking about it. I'm talking about forget about like gambling.
No, not the bookie. Not the bookie in himself. His office.
Yeah.
Correct.
bookie
Okay, so
himself
let me ask.
gambles.
Let me ask.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you are 10-1 on one side of a bet. You got to lay that off. No,
You do. Sure, you do. You lay off.
That's
You lay
so
off
you
all
lay it off.
day.
You lay it off. You lay it off. You lay it off. Right.
Yes.
So now your margins are the vig, basically.
It depends. Yeah. You know. Yes. Yeah.
So no, hold on.
It is.
Listen.
It
I believe in the Italian expression: "Mangi uovo, no pollo." Eat the eggs, not the chicken. I would rather make $5 a day for life.
I agree.
And $100 a day for for 50, for 20 years or whatever. So like I whatever that math comes to, because once you kill the chicken, it's done. What kind of stretch? Just a number range. I want to ask. So on your first pinch for weed distro back in the day, what was it? JC, 5 to 7, 10 plus.
First I never got hit for that. I was hit for grand theft and burglary and stuff like that in California.
No, but what would somebody get hit for?
With what I was doing, probably a 5-year minimum, and then it goes up from there.
5+. Tommy, you get false. You run an office. First pinch. What are you looking at?
Yeah.
How long?
Yeah.
I would say what
I was looking at 3 to 5 on my first when I got pinched. 5-year maximum.
Okay. So bottom line is, if
there was conspiracy in there.
So bottom line is
there was other charges in there. So I would say
one of us to RICO, they'll tie us into, and they'll try to pull the 20-year conspiracy stuff on gambling or marijuana, guys. Yeah.
I mean, okay. So now
conspiracy.
It's actually a good conversation.
Yeah.
Hey, Teresa.
Yes.
We're talking about two businesses that have now become legal, right? So are the sentences less? Let me start with JC. Are the sentences less for weed now?
Well, yeah, drastically less. Because, I mean, look, not only in the 90s did we have the old school laws that were pretty harsh, we also had the 3 strikes law that kicked in California. So if you already had a felony amount, you could, even a marijuana arrest for your second or third offense could be counted as a strike case, which doubles and triples your sentence. And on a third one, it could be 25 years to life. So look, the feds actually hit a point in Cali where they were like, we don't need to threaten you. We can send you to the state. And unlike a lot of other states, California has a tax base that can build prisons at a similar rate as the federal government. So
hold on. So if you're a weed guy, hold on. If you're a weed guy now, I don't know if I believe it. If you're a weed guy now and you get caught, versus when you were in business,
you're a tax criminal now because you're just not paying into the regulation system. So maybe in today's California, they're letting out anybody. So I don't think I don't think they'd even prosecute anything under 99 plants.
So I have
a federal limit too.
I have a dumb question.
So I don't think they're going to do it.
If you could buy legal weed wholesale, are there people buying it legally from legal sources and bring it into the back market because the margins there, or that margins are not good enough?
Here's the other thing. This was in the news just a week or two ago. California's the top leaders out here in the legal industry are telling the state government that if they don't back off the taxes and regulations, they're actually going to destroy the legal market. And they said, guess what? There's been an illegal market that's been around for years and years and years, and they'll just pick up right where they left off.
What did legalization have an effect on the black market? Because I remember when I was in San Diego, you go on the loud line, you call them up, and a guy shows up in your hotel 2 hours later in a Honda. You give him cash and you walk off for your edibles or your whatever you buy. So again, I don't want to go in a corner, risk myself. Hey, bro, you got butt. Like, I'm not going to do that. So what I'm saying is I can't imagine the legal dramatically cut into the illegal in California. No, JC?
Well, yes and no, but what happened was the same fields that were used to grow 100% illegal are now X% legal, and they,
Got it.
there's ways you can tax it. They put little tax, um, uh, their wraparounds on the stalks of the plants,
Yeah, I've
so they
seen
know
that. They're
which
like
plant's
little
legal.
tags.
Right?
They have
That's
chips in them
Yeah,
too.
yeah. There's
No, but do
ways
you
to
know? Do
do
you
it,
know?
and
Do you know? Do you know the tax people? By the way, they're smart. I don't mess with any of the alphabets, and like the IRS and all these different forms, state, even IRS, whatever the version of that is, their treasury. They'll look at a stock and say, "Wait a second, that could produce so much X revenue." So they'll like forensically look at your stock that's has a chip in it, and they'll say, "Okay, this is how much you should be paying." So if it's under that, you're now open to audit. What's crazy about it is it's all cash. So just because it's all cash, you still got to pay. Like they don't fuck around when it comes to taxes, you know?
there's still a hodgepodge of contradictory laws, a hodgepodge of stupidity in the tax code. And, you'll find that you can't even, to this day, you can't take marijuana or any other money and put it into a bank. You're not allowed to, even in the legal states. They've tried to change the law. The last president, President Trump, actually proposed in the 2016 campaign to change the law, and he did it in front of a far right wing crowd, which was mind blowing at the time. But he really changed the game on this. It can be done politically now because the most moral people alleged were always the far right, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the last president changed the game on that. And the polls show that now, even amongst the most religious folks, legalization, taxation is extremely popular. And it just shows how, they are not connected. The banking
All right.
laws are still archaic. The tax laws are mixed message. So I wouldn't even mess with it right now because I don't want to go to jail. And a guy like me would be an easy target. They could say, you violated this rule, this technical rule. You violated the other one.
So hold on, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. So because I'm contemplating on getting into the space. I'm late on crypto, late on online gambling. Um, you know, what are the serendipitous areas? Forget about I'm not, you got to get investors. I'm not going to probably open up a dispensary anytime soon. I don't have as much of an appetite for it. I know it's lucrative, but what are other areas that you can do well in in the space? Because I actually did some marketing for a cannabis testing company in Nevada, and it was funny. They would overnight the cash because they collected cash, so
right.
they were paying cash. So is it marketing for? And the other marketing's difficult because you can't just buy Google ads. You can't buy Facebook ads for weed. So as a marketer, you got to be really frigging good. So my question to you is, marketing. What are some of the other areas? Like they say, you don't get rich mining for the gold. You get rich by selling the axe and the picks. So what, in your opinion, what are the areas that there's some entrepreneurs on here that are watching that want to get rich in the space outside of the distribution? What are some of the other areas in your opinion?
Well, so like other places to market, if you can't market online or on TV, do what the tobacco companies did. They reached out to all the local liquor stores and said,
Yeah.
"Hey, put our promotions in there. Go to the places that sell cannabis paraphernalia. Go to all the head shops and get your
That's
brand in
actually
there.
smart. That's
Make a
actually
brand,
smart.
set up displays, and say, "Hey, this is my brand." And the out here, I have a delivery service that brings it out. Then I've got one dude.
Yeah, but I would go one step
quasi
further.
legal. I get it
I
from.
would go. I would
know.
go. Hey, Robert, how are you? I would go one step further. I would go into let's say cigar lounges or liquor stores or supermarkets to say, listen, I want to put this big screen here. I'm going to give you 1,000 a month, and then run ads on all those screens for cannabis people because you can't advertise on TV. You can't do certain things, right? So you're right. Those grassroots type stuff. And rather than put a sign up, you put up a TV or something digital, and you can make a fuck ton of money. Who wants to invest?
Another
Let's do
thing
this.
maybe would be the good old donor class thing. Donate to local zoos, charities, etc. So you get your picture taken, with community leaders. And that's something that I would do as well. That's look, it's an old fashioned way of getting, into the system and a lot of these ex-mob guys actually have set up charities. The Mexican mafia was busted 20 something years ago on a $40 million ex-convict scam where they were pretending to set up a drug program and other reentry stuff. They got a bunch of tax money from the state, and eventually when they were audited, it was discovered that it was all being funneled to the mob. And so really the charity space, and I'm talking about doing it legal, I'm not talking about, hey, here's what you should do to scam them. No, this in this situation, get into the charity space and donate to important causes in the community that you're targeting for your most sales. And that way you're being seen with community leaders and other folks doing good.
Well, okay, so maybe some grassroots marketing is one. What about making like special containers? What about the infrastructure? Maybe filtration systems, lighting systems. I'm just trying to find a way for people that are here.
Well, okay. One of the ones that I angled in on that was legal was solar, and I would tell the weed growers, look, you're growing indoors. You're spending a fortune on electricity. Also, you're going to be tipping off the PG&E guys, and they're going to go tip off the DEA and others.
Well, well, just so you know, that's another thing, and I don't want to be too conspiracy. They look at patterns for electricity usage, and they tie it back to indoor weed usage, growing, or crypto mining. For the crypto mining, they look at it because they want their taxes. For weed, they want it for taxes too, let's be honest, but also DEA looks into that as well.
That's not conspiratorial thinking at all. You don't need to qualify it with that phrase, because that's just standard investigation by any agency that's looking to catch people on a macro level. You got to do large scale data mining, if you will, large scale surveillance to catch certain people.
Got to say bye to NB. Thank you. So hold on. So when I was in Italy, they would smoke hash. What the heck's the difference between hash and weed, like regular weed?
Hash is the oils that's inside the weed plant. The THC, it's just extracted out, so it's a high concentration of THC.
Got it. Any reason why in Europe or in Italy they would do hash over weed? Just out of curiosity.
Probably because they have to ship marijuana further to get it from the Western Hemisphere to Europe.
Bang off for a minute.
And it makes it easier to ship it in. It's sort of like the difference between hard liquor and beer. If you're moving hard liquor during Prohibition, or excuse me, if you're an alcohol guy in Prohibition, you want the least amount of space in your smuggling containers. So you got to have high concentrate. Then you can cut it later when it gets to the source.
Got it. Giuseppe, welcome to the Armchair NBA. How you doing today, sir?
Good. Happy birthday, bro.
Thank you, brother.
What did I step into?
Later on.
Get the federal case.
Hashish and gambling.
So later on,
two favorite things.
Yeah, later on, I'm doing a pre-record with Bobby Luisi and Paul Tanzo, and we're gonna examine the economics of cocaine. And I wanted to get like the Cosa Nostra's point of view. And
the economics as what, a user or a supplier?
No, distribution from Colombia, Mexico.
Very big difference.
No, we're gonna follow the whole supply chain, whether it be from Colombia or Mexico, how we got it to Boston. What did he unpack it? Did he step on it? Then from there, did he handle the distro? I want to know the margins all the way from the grows to the nose. I like that. So I want to understand.
Did you come up with that? That's a nice.
I just came up with it on my birthday. I'm gonna copyright that. But so my man JC here, who I'm really happy to see actually as well, is he has gross weed distro at 75% gross margin and net 60%, which is really attractive. Like I'm in marketing, and it is a high gross margin, but a very low net margin. So I might have to recalculate or recalibrate my curve.
1990s, though, my friend. Nowadays, this market is so saturated that there isn't a lot of profit, like it used to be. Not like
The
it used
thing
to
is,
be.
Tom, you in your business, you had overhead, you had costs,
Correct.
whether it's advertising or whatnot. In his business, you didn't need that.
Correct.
It
Well,
was
that's
all
why.
advertised
Well,
already.
and it's funny, you guys, when you see these movies like Blow, for instance, where they make it sound like, he was this great capitalist and this great mind. It's like, bro, you're selling a highly addictive product. It sells itself most of the time. And so, I wasn't just this super capitalist. I was selling a product that sort of sells itself.
Well, so hold on. So then it's a market share grab. Okay, if the margins are there, it's a market share grab. That makes sense. Okay, so now I'm in Detroit. I come and get your 100 pounds, right? And I give you 20,000 for that load, right? Or no, not 20,000. $20,000 will get me how much? At 100 pounds, because it's
That
more
was
than
in
that.
San Diego at the time through this one
No,
source.
I'm saying what do the Detroit guys pay for? About 400 a pound or 1,200? 1,200, right?
I was upping it to 4 or 5 on them. I was
4,000?
No. From 2, let's say I got it for 2 or 3. I was going to up it to 4 or 5 on each one.
So hold on, I'm 3 years old. I give you $400 for
Dang,
50.
you're a cheapskate. You're going to go with the low on me, bro? Come on, man.
Okay, I give you $500.
All right, 5. Okay.
50 pounds, right? That's 25 grand, right? Give you the
Yes.
money. Now I'm gonna take these 50 pounds and then I'm gonna break them down, I guess, in a dime bags or whatever the denomination.
No. When you're moving 100, you're not selling dime
You're not gonna
bags.
sell
That's
dime.
extremely dangerous and
Yeah.
it's not smart.
Oh, so what do you do then?
You're
What do you
getting
do
rid of it
then?
in 5 packs. 5 pounds to this guy, 10 here. You don't.
Oh, so hold on. So you were the almost in a way the manufacturer. They are the supplier.
Yeah, look, the DEA labeled my area an HIDTA zone, which stands for high intensity drug trafficking area. There's like 4 of those HIDTA zones in California alone, a couple in Texas, So my area was called, that's how much stuff was being manufactured. Keep in mind, we grew it in the Sierra Nevadas just east of us too. And we could pull it from the mountains during the harvest time. Then there was the crank business that got started in the Central Valley and then moved to Cali and everywhere. So we were considered a source country by the DEA's definition of what constitutes.
So hold on. So I'm 3 years old. I buy for 500. So I'm probably the supplier at that point, the local.
Yeah, you'll be the supplier for your area. Yeah.
So break it up. I'll break it up. So if I gave you 25 and I break them up into 10 units of 5, how much am I collecting gross on that 25? Is it 2 to 1? What am I collecting?
So you're talking about the guy that sells it in 5.
Yeah, I get 50. Packs? I get 50 pounds worth, and I chop it up at 5 pounds each to 10 guys.
They could knock that up to the basically the 12 range, because what I was talking about was what he sells it for. So let's just lower it down to 1,000 a pound just to be safe, so that it goes fast.
Yeah.
So he's in Michigan, one of the suburb areas. He sells it, in 5 packs to that guy, and he's selling ounces from there typically.
Got it.
So QP here and there by those guys.
So you're looking about 2.5% on your money. Meaning if I
it's a decent amount. And that's what, keep in mind, they have to pay for the trafficking costs. And if they got cops that know what they're doing, they got to pay that guy. There's 1, maybe 2 extra expenses there. But after that, it was a decent amount of money.
Okay. And then the guy that gets these little 5
packs, 10 packs.
How many? So he's the one who puts it in the dime bags.
Yeah, or ounces at that point, really ounces, and then the guy.
So that guy pays. Give me a second. That guy pays for a 5-pack. How much?
Let's just say 5 G's, 1,000 a piece at that point. All right.
So 1,000 for a 5-pack.
Right.
How much do I get at the street level?
Now each one of those pounds can be broken up into 16 ounces.
Correct. And how much an ounce is it?
So let's just say that it's 150 for an ounce there, in Michigan at the time.
Yeah.
For decent quality Mex weed. It's going to go down if it's cheap stuff, of course, but the better stuff, let's say 150 a zip, as we call it. So there's 5 of those pounds.
So 2,400. Yeah.
So
you
5 times 16, then times that by 150, and that gets your total profit amount.
So that's almost like 1/3 profit, and there's really no overhead. You have to pay deal. Okay. If I'm a dealer, you give me just some like ounces, and I sell it. What's my cut as a local dealer?
Well, the difference between your costs versus what you sell it for. Now, there you could add in some promotional costs, and in the weed game back in the day, I would count sharing weed with certain friends of yours that buy a lot. That's a promotional cost. Give them a little bit of weed here, try it out.
Finally, the man who is a subject matter expert on it, Marky Mark. Welcome to the special birthday edition with the Headless Horseman.
Come on the show, Mark.
Mark, you got to come on for this one. I know you're low key, but we need you for this one.
Yeah, he's low key, all right. Yeah, he's low key.
I'm trying to
pictures he was fucking sending me last night.
I'm trying to break down, because later on I'm meeting with Bobby Luisi and Paul Tanzo doing a podcast, and we're going to do the economics of coke. We kind of broke down the economics of weed. What I find interesting though, and Joe, I want to get you weigh in. It looks like it's roughly 60 to 70% margin along the whole supply chain, meaning like it's not disproportionate. You get what I'm saying? Like it looks like everybody kind of eats on that, correct?
I would think. I mean, yeah, but like you said, it's how much you can get. How much you're paying for it. Obviously, is I know in the 90s in Vegas, if you could get it for like $300-400 an elbow, that's pretty good. But it depends also how you want to
real
sell
good
it.
In Vegas.
Yeah.
Damn, that's a damn good rate. That's
because my friend
Jerry,
and this is the truth, he would get it right from the dude. So when we would get it, it was the imprints a lot of times of like insides of shoes. Like an insole of a shoe.
Yeah.
There'd be like a pound, all compressed down, like a brick. We'd have to steam it and do the whole thing. So the reason why it was that price is because that was one step removed from the guy in Mexico. It came from Mexico to this guy, and my friend Jerry, this Mexican dude from Cali, it was his cousin. So he'd put 100 or 2 on it.
Real quick, Tom, he's absolutely right. I would see QPs that's 4 ounces in a hockey puck looking thing, and also in Vegas, Joey would have had a much tougher situation than in Cali, because the laws in Nevada back then were outrageously harsh on these guys, and that raises the price. On the street, because somebody's going to pay the piper if something goes down, and that raises the rates. Tough laws do.
What's stopping though? I'm in Detroit, right? And you're kind of a middleman. You get it from somebody from Mexico. You're probably not doing a lot of like honorable people. Like let's be honest, in some cases, right? What's stopping them from cutting out the middleman? I was always kind of wondered about that.
Well, look, there really isn't anything other than what is in their best interest. Sometimes it's in your interest to have a guy there because he's taking the most risk. He's out in public with it, let's say, and it's worth, paying a few bucks. One of the points that I made with your economic stuff is if you go up the ladder, we looked at down the ladder, but if you went up it, if Ori, Spotto, and let's say Joey or Bobby Luisi, if all of us actually had known each other in the 90s and the way the FBI and all them say all of us,
we don't be in jail by now.
We would have been able to pull our money together, and we could have bought a ton or 2 tons coming right off a rider truck, from across the border. And it wasn't like that. So we missed out in some, that one level of profit because we weren't pulling our money.
So so that's my question. Cause I know on the East Coast, there was a lot of guys involved at distro from Canada and from the West Coast from Cosa Nostra that were made men. I don't want to say their names because they're active and it's all public. So you can Google it. But why did Cosa Nostra get involved with national distro of a weed in your opinion, JC?
Well, the old timers were very much against it, and that's just the truth. I was amazed that their attitude on weed was pretty much almost the same as heroin or other drugs. They didn't like it. They would say, stay away from it. You know, they knew we were all doing that stuff, but they were telling us that it would be bad in the long run. And I think they were proven right to some degree with the harder drugs in particular, that it destroyed the whole community and a lot of other stuff. But, you know, the fact is they didn't view it as being this good thing. Now, did some mobsters and others from that generation, you know, see and understand and were involved? Yeah. But the prevailing attitude was that, you know, they didn't view weed guys as being honorable. Not here, not anywhere that I've ever seen. But
Interesting.
but it was it still
How
happened.
old are you, JC? That's your name, right, JC?
I'm 46.
Okay, so you're my age.
I'm
So-
46 today, my friend.
Happy
So
birthday yet again, buddy.
basically, when I was a kid in Brooklyn, okay, I know for a fact that, well, okay, my friend, my big brother was in Dyker Park, okay, right across from the 19th hole, okay. My friend Jerry was a nephew of Gas Pipe. There's no way that he was selling what he was selling, what we're talking about. That's what he was selling in there without his uncle knowing.
Right.
So these guys on the East Coast, they frowned on it, but it started to change a lot in the 80s because everything, the 80s and early 90s, everything was drugs, drugs, drugs. It went from weed and then it went to fucking harder drugs. I mean, blow was always around.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that he was selling. No one ever told me, like, hey, we're getting the okay from the people across the street. But I know for a fact, just from in hindsight, that there's no way he would be fucking 150 feet away from the 19th hole door, fucking selling fucking weed without their okay.
Well,
Right,
Joe,
and look, in my area, traditionally, one of the upcoming shows I'm doing is about the Sika brothers, who were from New Jersey originally. They settled in my area.
Yeah.
They set up
San
a good
Jose?
heroin up. What's that?
One second, Ali. One second, Ali.
You from San Jose?
Fresno. They set up in Fresno first.
Joe
The very
Sika,
first-
right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah, okay. He was
the very first area that they set up was here, and they got tied into Mickey Cohen and others, and they had a big heroin thing, and they had a bust up here, an Armenian mobster who they also knew a lot of the Italians back in the day. He got hit, and they clipped him. The mob got him. You know, he was supposed to testify for the FBN, which is the DEA at the time. And so they were always involved. And out here it was a little bit more of a, we know it's a, you know, look, California was sort of becoming a source for a lot of other states. And they knew that was the trend. And they were doing what, you know, they saw the weed stuff a bit as a hippie thing, but also as a, you know, we got to be hush hush because it's viewed harshly thing. But I mean, they know it's how could they not?
Joe, I and you could probably attest to this too. I used to hang out in Dyker Park, 93-ish to maybe as much as 96-ish, and the 19th hole was closed by then. We used to call it the Walk. It was an Asian restaurant, and you can get weed pretty easily in Dyker Park back then. And I assume, you know, and actually most of the guys that were selling it were connected, you know, nephews and sons of people. So I think at that point it was like whatever, you know.
Yeah, but the time period I'm talking about is I know for a fact the 19th hole was still there, and like I said, his nephew, Gas Pipe, another one of his nephews, a kid who actually got killed, Mikey Del Duca, he was into a lot of you know, obviously he was a car thief, but drugs were just starting to really percolate there, and a lot of people were doing them. You know what I mean? Even kids, you know, kids that were whose fathers were wise guys and captains and bosses. They were all doing fucking drugs, selling and fucking doing it personally.
Well, let me ask you. I feel like because you listen to kind of like guys from the 80s, you hear like Jimmy Calandra and a few other guys say coke was extremely prevalent. in the 80s. I didn't find it, well, it wasn't really my lane. I was young, we met on the money, but it wasn't as prevalent in the 90s for my experience. What do you think, Joe?
No, I agree. I mean, but to be honest with you, I remember being fucking 5 years old, 6 years old, and my uncles would come over, it'd be my old family members freebasing right in front of me. Like, hey, I'm looking at them. There's like bricks on the table, and I thought it was sugar or whatever. And they're like, oh, when you get older, you'll do this. You'll put it on, you'll put it on cereal and stuff like that. It's like sugar. And they had these fucking grinders where they would put it in this thing, grind it up a little, I guess, and turned it into powder or whatever. They'd sniff that, and then freebasing started where they were cooking the shit. You know what I mean? And look, I look back on it, I'm like, how could fucking parents do that to someone? Like, because yeah, I was young, but I remember it vividly. It's not like, so it's
He's
crazy,
right.
but it was really big at that point.
He's right. The guy that introduced me to LCN, the Chaldeans, etc., his mom was a call girl involved with the mob who smoked rocks in front of him from day one. He lived down the alley from me. I started seeing that at 15, 16. And at first it shocked me, but later on I got used to it. And look, the mob had asked me about getting kilos of coke out here. And I tried. This was in 1994, 95. But all the Mexican dudes that I knew were switching over to crank. And they would tell me, look, I can get you maybe a kilo of coke at the most, but I can get you 200 pounds of meth or whatever right out the gate.
Oh,
we called it crank back then. I didn't really hear, we didn't say meth till later, but but the mob couldn't do anything with it because at the time in Detroit, when I first brought it up to them and said, look, man, I can't get you what you're looking for, but I can get you this. They didn't even really know what it was. I had to describe it to them and say, your biker friends probably sell this stuff. It's that shit. And they're like, okay, yeah, okay, we know what you're talking about now. But they couldn't move it in the levels that they could now. But now we don't have that opportunity anymore. The window of opportunity closed on us. We could have taken control of meth at its earliest stages. How do I know? The Mexicans were able to ultimately do it. They did it after, there was a time period where it was so open, and this was considered a source region for it, that if we had carried, if we had the manpower and the organization and desire, we could have done that. And we could have taken over the weed stuff too, for the most part. Again, Mexicans were able to prove it because they ultimately did get a good percentage of it. And, Joe's right with the same principles with coke also apply to CR or meth when it comes to the dealer stuff, the mentality, the profit levels, the types of people that do it. They do it in front of their kids and things like that. And it spreads generationally that way. It's unfortunate, but it takes these dysfunctional ass homes to create us,
Yeah.
And what's crazy is my brother, who was obviously a part of it, never touched a drug in his life. Me, something different. But my brother never took a drug, is what I mean. But I guess what winds up happening is you become maybe desensitized to like what these drugs really do. You know what I mean? And it's a destructive thing. I mean, in my estimation, that's what I think hurt Cosa Nostra more than anything, was not the selling of the drugs, was that they all were doing drugs.
Correct.
And a lot of people disagree, but I'm telling you, because mobsters always sold drugs.
Yeah.
But why? And it was a big thing, obviously they changed the laws later on and made the penalties more stiff. But what happened, like the difference between my dad as a street guy and my grandfather were two completely different things. One guy wore a suit. One guy wore fucking jeans and a fucking, you know what I mean? One guy was a upstanding guy in the sense of he gave that appearance. and he wouldn't talk about things. The other was just a reckless dude doing shit,
He's
out
absolutely
there.
right. Wow,
It changed.
That's a great analogy and comparison. That's the same how it is with a lot of them. My dad grew weed when I was a younger boy, and I know he was a gambler. He was never, he didn't make anything of himself as a street guy. He was in construction and he knew how to build stuff. So he did well in that area, but he gambled and he grew weed and blah, blah, blah. Well, he didn't understand the damaging effect it had on me as a 5-year-old boy, seeing a bunch of pot plants in our basement with him smoking pot with my uncle, and both of them talking about how much money they're going to make from it. It taught me, they taught me that they're appearing to have fun. They're making money, which as a boy, you want your parents to have as much money as possible so you can get stuff, right? And the message that they're sending is this is normal business. Other than it's hidden in one part of our home, the rest of it's normal. And then that also teaches you that there's two sets or more of standards out there, and that's not good for society when people start having their own standard, whereas the law is something different. And in the whole generational thing too, the old timers, they could be worth millions, but they would live in a regular home. They're nice. Their home would be nice typically, but it would be kept up. They would have one woman that they spent their life with who was with them forever. And they were typically not messing around, or it was very minimal back in the day. They knew that you had to have a solid woman like that, and who knew, you kept in the dark on some things, you kept her in the light on others, but she was with you no matter what, as you're linked to the outside world if something ever went wrong, and keeping you in the right spot mentally, all kinds of stuff. Fast forward, guys even one generation north of Generation X, they get into that Me Too stuff. They think they should have everything and have it fast. They want to have all kinds of women and disregarding how they deal with each one, and leaving jaded souls, we'll say, which ultimately can come back and get you. Yeah. Big difference. He's right. Absolutely.
Let me ask a question though, because Michael Francis said it best. He goes, "Hey, Drito, he said it best when he goes, you take drugs away from some of these organizations, they crumble. You take drugs away from the mafia, it continues, right? You hear about the Gambino family's been around for, going back about 90 years. The five families go back at least 90 years, right? Versus, are there any drug organizations in the U.S. that you dealt with that are still around after 20 years? It just seems like drugs are an in and out kind of thing. Like you get pinched and you're done. Are there any drug organizations, like even cartels don't last? Like Escobar had maybe an 8-10 year strong run. Cali had about 12. I know the Sinaloa has been about 15, so maybe they're the exception. But inside the U.S., do drug organizations last? What do you think, JC?
Well, no, they're typically the more effective ones are extensions of the ones in Mexico. They got guys in my area or other parts of the Southwest. They probably have them all over America now. Back in the day, it was primarily regional. But, look, if you look at prohibition in general with the mob out here, the San Diego guys, they established routes with Mexico to move tequila back in the day. They also, were moving weed. Weed became illegal in 1937. Somebody was selling it after that. Guess who it was? Ta-da, the mob. And, they had cross-border stuff that lasted for years. Now, they're probably the only exception. But again, it's an extension of LCN at that point. But they're not around now. They use the same, routes now. Yeah, but that's not the same people by any means. But the longest standing drug organizations would have been Cosa Nostra, if you want to count who made it the longest amount of. And I'm talking international. A lot of people don't know it, but there was cross-border stuff back in the day that started with alcohol and moved to weed and other stuff.
Hold on, I want to address PJM Justice. You're welcome to jump on. You and I were chatting in the comments earlier. Just want to take a minute to address this situation that you're bringing up. So he writes, why don't you show your so-called investigation into A-Light? You lost credibility. I used to like your show. due to your honesty. Okay, so there's pretty much 4 parts to the A-Light thing. The first was I went back to an old interview and I isolated 5 or 6 things that I felt didn't age well, and I was very critical of the interview doing the replay. Then I had them on and I pressed them like nobody pressed them, to the point that people that hated me, that hated the old NBA button man, that hated every fiber of my being, crossed the aisle and said, I like what you did with A-Light. You know what? He deserved it. You pressed him. Nobody pressed him like that, blah, blah, blah. So I said, okay, those 6 things I'm going to investigate thoroughly and unpack those 6 things to the best of my ability. So I did. And when I unpacked those 6 things, remember, part of investigating something that's 30 years ago is you try to do whatever's on the internet. You try to get first party or second party feedback, and you try to do your best. I have limited resources, limited time. I run 2 businesses. I'm a busy guy. I was going to hire a journalist to write it, but I just didn't have the time or resources to do it. So I really did my best to unpack 6 of the all 6 items directly to him, which nobody has done. 3 turned out to be inconclusive. 3 I found to be conclusive. Addressed it, presented. I was a little more cool, a little more professional, got that done. Then I had Common Sense on, probably I think the next day, for 2.5 hours, which is more than enough time to say, hey, Common Sense, you can go ahead and challenge not only any of the 6 points, which I wanted to stick to because it gets kind of a rabbit hole. You're welcome to challenge it as far as you need to. And he was on for 2.5 hours. It's still live. I don't pull that stuff down. It was a respectful conversation. We agreed on some things. We disagreed on some things. And that's where we landed. So PJM, I tried the best of my ability to unpack a really precarious situation. So if you disagree, I guess we could agree to disagree. But and in terms of sources, one thing I will not do is somebody gives me a source for a piece, I will not disclose who it is. That is actually rule number 1 in journalism. You do not disclose your resources. You'll lose your credibility, and nobody will ever give you resources again. I even believe it's protected by law that if somebody comes to you and they're a confidential resource for a journalistic piece, that you can hold your own and say, sorry, I can't tell you. I think, JC, you know a little bit about that, I believe, right?
Well, anything short of you tying A-Light to a chair and backhanding him, into saying everything that the haters of A-Light want to hear, nothing is going to satisfy these people. So you can't go. you have to just be you, and anybody that has a brain should be able to decipher how you are as a person versus how A-Light is. There's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
It illustrates itself. And look, if I was one of A-Light's handlers, I would just point out that, hey, the guy's been through a tremendous amount of PTSD issues. And if he's got a memory problem here and there, we'll talk about it and deal with it later. A-Light's biggest problem is he spouts things out off the top of his head about facts or situations. We'll say facts in quotes. And the moment a guy like him does it, who has a large following, he's going to be in hot water with somebody. And he has to stop doing that. If I was one of his handlers, I'd say, bro, you got to, you're going to have to admit that a few of the things you said are not accurate. And here's what you got to clarify.
Hold on. The man is here. Thank you for coming on, PJ.
There's some other stuff as well, but there's.
Hold on, JC.
Let's welcome haters.
Hold on, PJ Justice. I always welcome feedback. I am not afraid to discuss things and have an active disagreement, just as long as it's respectful. PJ Justice, welcome to the Armchair Chair NBA. How you doing today, buddy?
How you doing? I'm doing all right.
So give me where do you think I fell short on the A-Light series in your opinion?
Well, I mean, what do you consider yourself a journalist?
I consider myself a podcaster. I do.
Okay. With journalistic tendencies.
Well, for one is if I have somebody on who, if I give you an example, I had Rich Valdez on, who is a big part of the local Republican Party. So, for example, I have no challenge having somebody on from the Democratic Party to challenge his beliefs, and I want the viewer to make their opinion. So I am a podcaster. I'm not a reporter per se. I'm not a full journalist, but I am a podcaster, and I try my best to provide both sides of the coin. Even as a podcaster, if you get a tip or you get some private information, you cannot disclose who they are. So I did my best to get that information for people that took a while to get to. It took about 6 weeks, and I reported as I saw it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's pretty much been proved that John A. Light is a liar. I mean,
Well,
and
so hold
I
on.
mean, this is the thing.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
No, go ahead. You go.
Okay, so just to reiterate, I looked at 6 things. There's a lot of stuff out there. Listen, I'm not a magician, right? I had to say, okay, let me isolate 6 things and then go through those 6 things and then do my research and unpack. The first was he capable? Second, was he an earner? 2, did he rob Tommy Karate? 4, did he know about the Castellano hit? 5, did he break down Joey Gallo? And then 6 was the shooting on the property. So literally 3 out of the 6 right off the top were just boom, gone, right? The shooting, we couldn't conclude that we couldn't find the bodies, although there was some activity. Joe Gallo, he admitted to be a messenger boy, and obviously Castellano, he said he knew something was going on, but he acquiesced and he wasn't. He was very capable. Listen, maybe I'm not a street guy, so if you kill one person, in my opinion, you're capable, right? I talked to some guys that were on the street back then. 9 out of 10 said he was very capable, so that was an easy one. In terms of an earner, he admitted to being more into drugs than I think he did in the past. That was his earn. I think that was legitimate. And then the Tommy Karate thing, the person I did speak to out of Staten Island said that was a Tommy Karate stash house. I had no reason to believe or disbelieve. I just reported what they said. Now, can I trace it back to Tommy Karate? I can't. I can only go by that source, and I can't divulge that source. So I did my best in that piece to unpack those with that. Then I also welcome Common Sense on to tackle each of the pieces the best he could. And if I disagreed, if I felt I disagreed in the research or challenged so what happens is when you report something, you don't challenge the validity of the truth, you challenge the research method, right? So we went back and forth in my research method. I think we got fair ground. And then he was on for like another 2 hours going on other stuff. He was happy with A-Light, things that I could address, things that I couldn't. And I did my best with it,
Yeah, well, the kid obviously knows what he's talking about. Common sense.
Yeah. So again,
this guy is he's a piece of shit. Literally, he's a piece of shit. And this is the thing, right? From what it appears to viewers, because I'm a viewer and I watch these mob shows, it appears, and I have a pretty sound mind, that it looked really fake, the first one where you're coming at him. It looked pre-planned. I'm telling you how it looked. That looked pre-planned and fake, right?
Yeah.
And then when you came back, it's almost as if you, the honest journalist, have verified what this guy's saying. That's what it appears.
I will say this. The reason
I'm just calling it like I see it.
You're welcome. You're welcome to give your opinion. And the reason what started it was I did what turned out to be somewhat a hit piece on the interview I did with him when he released his second book. And I'm not going to lie. I was upset. And the reason why I got upset was, he helped build my channel. He was always fair to me. And then I felt like I kind of interviewed him and some things turned out to be false. So when him and I spoke on the phone the first time before he came on, when I pressed him and I went at it on the phone. And I said, you know what? Like we were texting. I'm like, you know what? I'm on live. You want to come on? Fuck it. He came on. And that was all freewheeling. Like you saw, like I had the phone.
You know what though, Tom? 3 or 4 years ago, you had that interview, whenever it was, where you were in person with him. I don't know if you had one prior to that, but that's the first one I had ever seen with you.
No, yeah, that's the first.
And you know what? You actually did very well on some points in there. What you did was, A-Light clearly showed up to your interview forum seeking to say his narrative and nothing else. And you kept saying, hold up, let's unpack that. You actually wanted.
I thought I challenged him. And
yeah,
PJ,
absolutely. Especially compared to the other ones he did. He did
well,
one on the radio
and also
back then. The rest have been PR pieces up till that point. And I have a journalism degree, so I'm saying this as a professional
and also
in the business.
And PGM really quick too, to be totally fair for all parties. One is, he did meet me in person. I thought I pressed him on that interview, right? back then. And then I pressed him really hard in the recent interview. But then after coolness had prevailed, as I did the research, as 6 weeks passed, we got on, I was much more calmer because it wasn't that professional to do. Number two, if I
What's the research? What is the research? You didn't show any of the research.
Well, no, I explained each research point. So, for example, the capable, I went back to some of the 302s. I spoke to somebody who's actually in the chat right now, where he explained that he shot 4 people in Vito Guzzo's joint. None of them died, but he still shot them. To shoot somebody in Vito Guzzo's joint at any point is a badass move, along with the 302s, along with at least one confirmed kill. Another, I have Grasso, Stratton, conspiracy for DeBono, and conspiracy for Frank Boccacino, which he has a nickname, conspiracy. I was able to extract stuff from the 302, so that was a capable. In terms of the earning, I looked at his old home, which was established to be his. It's worth $10 million right now, worth about $5 million back then. And I spoke to multiple people that knew. Remember, I probably interviewed maybe the most mobsters on all of YouTube. I've interviewed Francis. I interviewed, whether you call him mobster or not, Hootie. I did 100 interviews with Panisi, Bobby Luisi, Paul Tanzo, Gene Borello, whoever else is out there, Frank Friedolino. So I went back to some of those resources and asked those guys about him. Anthony Arulada. So I went back to people. I can't say which ones. Went back to, was he also earning money, which he was. So
What do you earn money with that? I earn money.
I'm sorry?
Money. So what does that mean, though? So what? He earned some money.
Look, A-Light in general, he obviously was out there.
No, I want to answer PJM. So again, because let's be honest, PJM, when it comes to him, passions are high. Let's just call shit what it is, right? So I had to isolate 6 of the critiques that he had, so I could isolate them and research them. I'm not here to do 20 things. If he lied about knowing Gotti Sr., I can't, that's not my lane. I isolated 6 things the best I could.
Well,
I researched those 6 things. Yeah.
All I'm saying, Tom, is this. It's real simple.
Yeah, please.
If you're reflecting to the public that you're going to investigate whether or not the guy's made significant amounts of lies about things that he's done and people he's been associated with, I would imagine if you're going to come at him and then vindicate him, that you would take the time and do a very thorough investigation.
I did. And in those 6 weeks, I refreshed Shout Out My Father. Angel told me to reference back to that. I went through Sammy Bull's comments in Value Entertainment, as well as retraction on retraction Value Entertainment publicly on the Richard Behar article. I read the Richard Behar article. I researched him and his credibility. He's a credible journalist. I researched extensively David Gentile, who's been with the FBI for 24 years. I looked into the Georgie Grasso murder. I looked into Frankie Burke. I looked into Richard Stratton. And then at that point, I didn't really look anymore from those certain things. And then there's a whole bunch of other things that I spoke to and people that I researched. So I did do maybe you don't like how I did it or what the result was, but I did spend a considerable amount of time on it.
It's not about me liking what you did. What it's about is that this guy's a piece of shit, and you're giving him.
I'm not the arbiter. I'm not the arbiter of who's a piece of shit or not.
Again, like you said, the emotions are high. And the fact of the matter is, and most people could agree upon this, that A-Light was out in the mix and whatnot, but he embellishes. Nearly everybody will say, yeah, he was out involved with the mob, whatever, but he also embellishes. We know this.
Also,
everybody can agree upon that.
Also, real quick, that one thing.
Yeah, please.
When he went in front of the judge, right, and he cried to the judge, are you familiar with that?
I was unaware of that.
Yeah, when he cried and said that he only killed one person.
That's correct. I stated that I have him on one, and then conspiracy on the others. I just said that earlier, and I also stated in the the video that I did, and that was confirmed, I believe, at Common Sense. Did you see the Common Sense secondary interview follow up? Did you see that yet or no?
I mean, I don't know which one it was. I mean, I know the guy.
Hold on, let me because I number my videos. So give me a second, PJ. Just give me a
I
second.
made you look pretty bad. Just being honest with you. I'm not trying to be rude or anything. It just
Who Common Sense?
common sense.
I actually
know the guy. I've never.
no, it doesn't make me look bad because I did those 6 things and I did my best for that. And then he had a whole bunch of other stuff. And
What
I
I'm
wasn't
saying,
able to corroborate. Yeah.
publicly vindicating the guy. Vindicating for him being truthful.
Hold on. All right. 35 was my interview with him where I went over the 6 points exhaustively. So you're welcome to revisit that. And 36, I was at 35. 36 is when I had Common Sense on. And I mean, you could feel how you feel. I thought it was a good exchange. I thought we were fair to each other. We agreed on some things. We disagreed on the other. Some things we agree to disagree. And that's why it's hard, right? You may present your case. I'll present my case. And I wasn't advocating for A-Light either. If I was advocating for A-Light, why would I have somebody on who's super critical? I'm not afraid of the truth. I want people to hear Common Sense. I want people to see me challenge A-Light. I want them to hear from A-Light's own words and then have them arrive at their own conclusion. That's the best I could do, brother. I don't know if I could do anything beyond that, you know?
So quick question. Did how many people did Johnny A-Light kill?
As far as I know, what I discovered was 1 plus other alleged as well as conspiracy. But
Alleged, what does that mean?
Well, it was brought up by multiple sources that he did it, but he wasn't charged for it. So I can't say he did it. I'm actually agreeing with you. I can't say he did this if he's not convicted of it. If it's alleged.
Okay. Saying if he goes in front of the judge and says, I only killed 1 person and I didn't do it, right? That's what he did.
My understanding, he pled it out to killing 1 person in 302s.
He didn't do it, right? He ordered it, correct?
That was not what I read, but again, I could be mistaken. But again, for me personally, the people that I spoke firsthand, and I spoke to multiple people. Hold on, I spoke to multiple people on his capability, if you will. Right?
You never asked him, Tom?
Pardon?
You out of all these interviews, you never asked the guy, have you personally ever killed anyone?
Well, I did ask him some indirect questions. I'm not if you watch my shows, I'm not the guy when a mobster comes on is, did you kill anybody? How many people did you kill? That's not my style of journalism. If he did, it's public record. If he didn't, I'm not the gotcha guy. My there is to unpack their story, why you want to avoid that kind of life. Why do they do what they do? My podcasting style, my interview style.
All right.
Done 450
the question, Tom.
Please.
Do you believe? So you never asked Johnny A-Light, did you personally ever kill anybody?
I never asked that the question, but I never asked that to any of the alleged mobsters that I interviewed. That's just not my jam. It's not my jam. There's podcasters that want to ding you and get you and ahas, right? That's not my journalism, not my podcasting. My podcasting is meant to get this side, and then you get that side, and then you watch it, and then person makes an opinion. I don't want to lead either way too much. And then number 2 is I don't do the whole like Michael Francis is like clickbait. Did you kill anybody? Well, I'm not undercover. I'm not going to get any different answer from him. I'm not a special genie, so I don't ask those direct questions.
Well, let me just make a point to that effect. So, Michael Francis, right, didn't receive immunity for killing anyone, so he would have to be a fool to say on a podcast that he killed someone.
But remember, my point of the first part was a lot of people question, was he really indeedly capable, and that he was muscle on behalf of Junior and that crew.
That's just a question.
Say that again. I'm sorry, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. The question was that Michael Francis would have to be a fool to say on a podcast that he killed someone because there's no statute of limitations, correct? We agree on that, right?
I understand. Correct. Yes.
Okay. So if he went on a podcast and said, yeah, I killed Tony Two Noses, right? and Tony Tuna, he doesn't have immunity, so he wouldn't do that, right?
Correct.
Okay, all right. So now back to Johnny A. Light. Johnny A. Light, and if you don't know this, I'll tell you. So when he was in front of the judge, he said that he's never killed anyone. Correct?
That I don't know. How about this? I'm going to take for what you're saying is true, and then I'll follow up on that. That's the hard part of this, right? I'll take for what you say to be true, but
I don't care that much about Johnny A. Light per se, but that's what I'm saying. What I believe to be a fact is that he told the judge, "Look, I didn't kill anyone with my own hand. That he had this guy Johnny Gerbert killed or whatever, right?" That's what you believe, right?
My understanding is I heard from two sources. With Johnny Gerbert, I heard that he ordered it.
Okay.
And then another one confirmed that he was not firsthand, and that I cannot talk about. But I can, like, I dug pretty deep in the woods on this one. I'm more than my comfort level. I had to call a guy who, like, I believe was like semi-active, and he was not willing to talk to me, and it was awkward. So, like, you got to remember too. Let's be real for a second. In this space, you don't always get people that are super credulous. Forget about A-Light for a second. You don't always get people that are credulous. And number two, you don't know who's active, who's inactive, who I could say the wrong name. Dude, I'm in Jersey, bro. Things can happen. So what I'm saying is I did my best within the resources I had to deliver a challenge the best I could and had common sense on the next day. I'm not I'll give you an example. It wasn't my job to super grill him, but my job also wasn't to common sense. Common sense is he doesn't need me. He's smart enough. So he provided what he believed to be the facts. He showed them with extensive research. He gave his opinion. And the best I could do, PJ, and hopefully we can agree on this, the best I could do is at least give a forum that if I talk about A, that I better fucking talk about B, because otherwise I'm a one-sided show. Is that fair?
Yeah, I guess that's fair. But this is the point I'm trying to make, right?
Yeah, please.
Johnny A. Light cried to the judge and said, "I didn't ever kill anyone. I had Johnny Gerbert killed. I'm sorry. Have mercy on me," right? And he got a deal, right? That now, if he actually killed all these people, right? Let's just say he shot this one, shot that one, shot this one, shot that one, shot this one and that one, and this one, that one, this one, and this one, right? Then he doesn't know. He could have a body, right? I mean, if you shot 80 people and maybe one of them died, which he said many times, I don't know if they died, they could have or couldn't have. What I'm saying is that he wouldn't have immunity for those people, correct?
Well, so my understanding, and I couldn't find this out conclusively, and I'm
trying to be rude. Sure, that's a yes or no question. I'm just trying to be blunt and to the point here.
That particular one, well, it's a loaded question, but that particular one, if you do not have immunity, you would be on the hook, right? So
right.
You're
clean, right? When you come clean and you're going to cooperate, right? You have to tell them everything that you did. Correct?
Correct. So I want to make sure, because I'm listening copiously. I want to make sure you're saying, listen, you know what? If you don't have immunity, you're not going to talk about it, right? Also, correct. if you did it and you don't have immunity and you talk about it, you don't have cover. So we agree on that. We agree on that. The part I struggle with on reporting on this, is I'm just going by, again, I try to look at both sides, right? So according to John Gotti Jr., he shared, with 302 copies, and they were like a phone book, right? That allegedly reported on over 300 figures of organized crime, right? So I just don't have the time to peruse through that. I'm guessing, and again, this is where you need common sense and you need other people to keep things legit. In those research, right? I just am assuming if he's going to bring it up and say that he did it, that he's in there, because you can't connect all of them. It's just too much time, right? But then the other thing is a lot of stuff gets slanted. Like, for example, when he had to sue his attorney for $250,000 in Florida, they negotiated a bad deal with the feds. he had a totally different story. When you go to look at public record, you can't find it. So there's a lot of stuff that, in my opinion, are toss-ups that people translate and are like, you know what? I don't like the guy, so he didn't have the right rat agreement. So like this is a hard one, man. I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying,
I don't think it's hard. It's not hard. It's not.
I'm sorry.
I mean, again, I'm not trying to be rude. I honestly believe you're too intelligent to believe some of the things that you're saying, man.
No, I'm saying is I did my best to report on it with the resources that I had, right? Then on top of it, I gave him a chance to talk about it. I gave Common Sense to talk about it. And then after that point, it's kind of like I serve it up. I serve up the forms equally and then do your best to kind of make her. I mean, Common Sense was on for over 2.5 hours. I think I gave him more airtime than anybody ever has. So I thought I was being more than fair. But yeah, again, listen, if you don't feel if you feel I didn't go strong enough or hard enough or deep enough, it's noted.
What I feel passionate about, Tom, I'm going to tell you this, right?
Please.
This is what I feel passionately about.
Yeah.
I went to prison, right, for 5.5 years for a crime that I wasn't involved in. I had to take the plea bargain. I took Michael Vanderveen was my lawyer. Trump's lawyer, Vanderveen, that was my lawyer. So he basically came into the holding cell and was like, look, you're looking at over 20 years in prison. And it's a nonviolent drug offense. So my advice is to take this deal. It's a 5-year deal. You'll be out in 4 for triple RI. Now, mind you not, I'm not guilty of the crime. I know this. And I got railroaded like this because of people that are just like Johnny A-Light. So to me, personally, anybody giving this fucking clown a platform, it's personal to me.
Of course.
That's why it's so personal to John Jr., because I believe personally that he made up lots of things. Some of the things were probably true, but he basically it's worse than ratting. It's like you're lying about somebody to get them booked. That's like worse than ratting, in my opinion.
Well, you got a point, and there are people out there in the space who say that, if you're against rats, obviously, I would assume you're probably against Calandra too. You're probably against Gene Morello, against Hootie.
As a matter of fact, no, I'm not against Calandra.
Well, he snitched and he put people in jail from ratting.
Okay, now that we touched on that, can I respond to that?
Of course.
Okay, so Jimmy Calandra was basically a child. So my kids were about the same age that he was at when all this took place, right? So you got these weird.
Make something clear. I'm very cordial with Jimmy. He and I are friends on Instagram, and I'm just making the point that if somebody's against the rats like that for the fact that they testified, then unfortunately that puts other guys in that category.
I mean, I'm trying to respond to what you said. So
no, I'm going. I want to make sure the public knows that I'm not against Jimmy at all. I'm fine with him. So go ahead.
All right. So all I'm saying is that you can't put everybody in the same category. Jimmy, right, has never killed anybody. Right? Number one, he's never murdered.
I agree with that. I think the charge against him for that was wrong. And, so I agree there. I keep in mind, bro, I'm saying this as the argument that's out there in the mob space. I'm not saying it's mine against yours.
I'm just trying to answer I'm trying to respond to what you said.
And I like what you're saying so far with Calandra. I agree with you.
So what I'm saying with Calandra is that he got put into a situation where his best friend was murdered, right? He got put into another situation where the guys that got ratted on, you know, you could call it ratting or truthful testimony from Jimmy.
It's ratting. If you're informing on other criminals and you're a criminal too, it's snitching, period. Doesn't matter who does it. If you're both criminals, it is what it is.
Word game. I understand what you're saying. What I'm saying is this, is that if you go to do a robbery, right, and somebody pulls out a gun and shoots a woman in the face, and then goes and tells people about it.
The proper avenue of retaliation is I would have shot him. I wouldn't have gone to the police. I would have clipped him.
Yeah, but JT, he didn't have time to. He got locked up a few months
I'm just
after.
saying that's the proper way is to clip the dude and do it behind bars or get someone else that you know behind bars to do it.
But why is that proper?
That's the proper venue to handle it. I'm just saying what I would have tried to do if it was me. I would hope that I would have done that if I was in a similar spot. And I was around guys that I was committing felonies with out here who did start getting in that violent zone, which is so I came extremely close to my own Jimmy Calandra situation.
AB Jimmy was always a good person.
I agree. He probably was.
Maybe he
I
just
like him now. He's all right.
Right? Maybe.
Well, so hold on, PJ. I want to address this. So number one is so it all comes about what your beliefs are, right? So you have your personal situation. They it bothers you, it gets under your crawl, right? You're more relaxed in your belief towards Jimmy. That's your prerogative. I share a lot of that sentiment in terms of that. That's my personal
completely different. He didn't lie about anyone.
No, correct. But we're agreeing that each situation is different. Panisi's is different. Frank Posk was different. And if you ask them, you're going to get their opinion, right? Then you look at like the We Push Back movement, right?
I think you could put me in any of these other mob rat, like in the same circle at all. That's my.
I'm not. What I'm saying is everybody's a belief system where you're like, you know what? I'm not good on A-Light, but I'm okay with Calandra. I have my belief. Let's say JC has his. That We Push Back are more unified in their belief that they treat it more as a swath, like a whole group of people that do that. They're just not aligned with, and that's what makes this discussion a discussion. And there's no absolutes. It's not. I'm a binary person, but it's just not binary. You know what I mean?
And by the way, you just said something very operative right there. One of the biggest reasons why I think the mob fell apart, and other organizations are too, is that everybody has their own definition of what this is or a definition of that. And if you don't all have the same definition of ratting, guess what? Anybody's going to make rules as they come. If you can do that, that means there's no rules. And what happens? It destroys everything.
So if you're selling pot, right? You're selling pot, you're not a murderer, right? You could be a pot dealer and not be a murderer, right?
Correct.
Okay. So let's just say
most are
selling pot, right, with your buddy. And then your buddy pulls out a gun and shoots the guy in the face, right?
Yes.
So what you're
I do is I say, hey, can you hand me the gun real quick? I'm going to go get rid of it. And then when he hands it to me, I'm going to clip him. And then I go.
But JC, see, I mean, maybe you're a murderer. That's what you're saying.
No, hold on. That's me extracting justice upon a guy who just committed murder in front of me. That's me defending a citizen. And
okay, so you should go to jail for the rest of your life.
Oh, really? Well, then again, though, you're trying to justify snitching, whereas I just say, hey,
justify. Listen, I went and did time and didn't snitch on.
Okay, I was ratted on in my very first case in California. I was ratted on, so I know what it's like to get snitched on. It happened to me immediately. And so look, I'm saying this. Some of these guys are better than others. I have a set criteria, but the first thing I do is I admit that they are all rats, and then I go from there. One reason why I happen to like Gene Borello over most of these guys is from day one, he embraced the rat label. He said, I'm a rat. You don't hear him saying, well, I was a government testifier extraordinaire in the courtroom guy. He embraced that rat label because that's what he is, and that's what they all are. Now, obviously,
I don't
yes,
agree
there's
with you,
some that are
man.
worse than others.
I just don't agree with you.
Well, hold on, PJ. I want to address something
You
really
don't
quick.
agree that they're all rats?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, then you have a different definition than I do. That's all. Okay.
Yeah. So hold on. So
That's
we
it.
listen.
Yeah,
We could
yeah.
hold on, PJ. With all respect, we could agree to disagree. Here's where agendas come in, right? So what happened was a few years back, and this is all documented, is when you're familiar with the story when he got jumped at Sugar Daddy's in Queens, A-Light.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
if you know the story. Okay. So the next day, I was again broke the story, had him on my podcast first, right? So again, I get stuff for it. You're platforming rats, you're platforming raps. The next day or within a week, I not only interviewed Chris Casparosa once, but I interviewed Chris Casparosa twice, giving him equal footing with A-Light. Remember, John Jr. Now remember, I've interviewed a lot of notable people. John Jr. respectfully declined to come on. That's his prerogative. I requested Angel Guardia to come on multiple times. That's her prerogative. I respect that. And at that particular case, they sent Chris Casparosa. As I said, are you speaking as their official representative? The answer is yes. So now they interviewed him once. I interviewed him twice. One had to make air. One we both agreed wasn't. We both agreed that it shouldn't make air. So now, when you say to me, "Hey Tom, you're platforming rats," I also need you to say, "Hey Tom, you're also platforming."
That's not what I said. That's not what I said.
You did say that earlier, though. One of your complaints.
I never
said
said you're platforming
you're
rats.
giving this rat a platform, and then
No,
went
you
on
say,
to
"Why
say
would you platform somebody who does that?" That's all.
John A-Light, a platform, who is worse than what you want to call a rat, because what he does is he makes up stories, which is different from cooperating.
Yeah, but PGM, I'm the first one to ever say, you know what, buddy, I'm gonna bottle 6 things. There's a million of them, and I'm gonna, like, for example, he says he shot somebody from Ngati's house. Turned out to be untrue. He then later retracted and said it's from the grandmother's house. I
There's
can't
only
confirm
so
that,
much
man.
time, and Tom selected 6 items in the allotted time that he had, and also he's got to, he also let the audience, there was an entire chat room.
Yeah, there were comments that I posted them up. Some of the comments.
So look, I don't see how if you expected him to just interrogate him the entire time, that would have actually devolved into an argument that would have ended the whole discussion.
Let me go back. Let me go back to what I said. What I said is if you're going to be a journalist, which is what you are, you just said it. You said it multiple times.
I said I'm a podcaster, and I do my best to operate under journalistic integrity. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So with that being said, is that when you give the impression to your viewers that first you're calling the guy out, right? In the first video, you're calling him out.
Hold on, which I did under a heated exchange, which I admitted, yes.
Okay. Which to me, and I'm being honest with you, looked to me to be pre-planned.
Well, here's the counter to that argument. One, it wasn't, and the truth always prevails. But number two, hold on. He was driving. Video didn't work. We went to audio, which is terrible quality. If it was pre-planned, I would have said, go to a static place, get your video, let's do a live, let's milk this, let's come up with jabs. I was pretty raw and rough on that, man. That was I'm a very emotional person, and that was my visceral feelings coming in.
I'm saying how it looked to me, and I have
that's your opinion, but I'm going to give you facts. The facts were it was done remotely. The facts were we went off audio. The facts were a video. Sorry, we went off onto audio, and the fact is I went after him pretty hard to the point that many people, including Emery and others, that don't generally like me having these guys on.
Because they hadn't seen the second one. So what I'm saying
No. I did the first one, and then there's 6 weeks of time before this. Remember, listen, let me ask you a question, PJM. I believe, you correct me if I'm wrong. Hold on, PJM, hold on. I believe you and JC, I think no matter our differences, our opinion, I think I treated you both with the utmost respect today so far. Is that fair to say? Utmost respect. Okay, I'm doing no different for A-Light. I'm not doing no different for Panisi. I'm doing no different for Bobby Luisi in an hour. I'm doing no. I treat people with the same level of respect. I let them get their story out there. Let people decide. Now, if I find that it's justified, now listen. You could have argued, well, why have Common Sense on? Like, who the hell is he? I looked into him. I discussed him offline. I found him to be very credible, and we had a good discussion. There's not really much more I can do.
Anything about that? You're going
Well,
around.
Yeah, look, there's gonna always be that, and you know, I got accused of staging Gene Borello or something. I had people that accused Lee Cole, I think, got accused of staging one or two of his things. You know, there's really no way to defend against that, Tom. Because that's what it appeared to be to him. He's in the minority, though. I think that the majority of the people would say that you didn't stage any of that. You know, obviously you're going to let them know a little bit of like the structure of the interview. Like, hey,
hold on, let
PGM
speak, JC. Hold on, let PGM speak real quick. Sorry. Go ahead.
The only point that I'm trying to make, right, is that being that, Tom, you give the impression that you're an honest journalistic podcaster, right? Which I'm not saying that you aren't. I'm just saying that from my viewing your previous shows, you come across as an honest fellow. Okay? So when you basically call John A-Light out, right? That looked real. It looked like you were calling him out, right? Okay.
Well, it was, but yeah.
Then when you come back in 6 weeks, right? 6 weeks is a lot of time for an investigation.
Not when you have 3 kids, 2 businesses, and dealing with like some stalkers trying to hurt your family. So sorry, I can't. That one I can't.
And by the way, PGM with Calandra, keep in mind that lady was shot in '93. It wasn't until 6 or so years later that Calandra actually even came forward and said anything. It was after he got in trouble for some other stuff. So it's not like he could have easily handled it. He had 6 years to clip the guy.
Hold on, JC. Let me just get facts straight here. Okay. Jimmy Calandra, right? When the thing happened with the lady, very shortly after that, he went to prison. Okay?
Unrelated charge, correct.
Yeah, he's also mob connected, though. He could have put the word out, hey, we need to handle this guy. Here's why.
JC,
there would probably be other mobsters who would have wanted to clip the kid too after finding that out.
JC, listen to what I'm saying, bro. What I'm saying is, Jimmy was a child at that time. Okay? Number one. Number two, Jimmy's not a murderer. He's just not. I know him. He's just not a murderer. He's not an evil.
I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying that, hey, the analogy that you said was not quite accurate. The fact of the matter is that he had plenty of time to handle it the street way.
Whenever I start talking, you interrupt me. I listen to you. I'm not trying to be rude, but every time I try to get a point across, somebody starts going in circles with something else. Like, let me finish when I'm speaking, bro.
Yeah, let him finish. We're gonna give a 2-minute shot clock on there. We're gonna go soon. No, let him finish. Yeah.
It's very simple. Jimmy was a young man, not fully developed into the man that we all grow into different human beings as we get older. Jimmy was still a young man / child.
So was A-Light when he was around the mob.
There you go. Just give me 60 seconds, JC.
Hold on, I'm muting JC. I'm muting him.
The thing happens, right? So Jimmy goes to do a robbery, right? Not a murder. He's going to do a robbery. The crackhead Tommy whacks the broad, shoots her in the face. Okay.
Don't say broad, man. Just it's somebody's mom. I'm waiting. I there's certain things like the Judith. Yeah, just I'm with you, but just watch the vernacular.
Can I continue? Okay.
No, but just don't say broad about somebody getting killed. That's all. That's
understood. All right. I'll give you that one, Tom. All right. So the lady gets shot by the crackhead. Okay. Shortly after that, Jimmy goes to jail. Right? He goes to prison for like 5 years. So Jimmy's not a murderer, okay? This is sitting heavy on Jimmy's mind, like it would for any of us, I'm sure. Okay, Tommy's my friend. I don't want Tommy to go to prison. It was a mistake. He's all cracked out. He didn't mean to do it. Again, he's a young man. Okay, he's not an adult at this point, a fully developed man yet at this point.
How old was he at the time, roughly? I don't even know, like 22?
He's like 21, 22, something like that, right? 21. He's my son's age. So, you know, I know the mentality of a young man that age, okay?
Yeah.
Not to mention he's been brainwashed by these weird old fucking guys like Spiro. He's been brainwashed, literally. You know, he doesn't have a father in the home, and this is why he preaches about how important it is to have a father in the home.
That's what it comes down to really quick on the old show, and if you watch, it really comes down to absence of fatherhood in the household. Anyway, keep going. Sorry.
But anyway, back to the point. So I'm sure at this moment in time, he's very perplexed as to like what to do and what can you do. Okay, it happened. He goes to jail. He doesn't tell anyone, right? He comes out, right? Now, while he's in jail, right, the guy that just turned a robbery into a murder, right, for Jimmy, now goes and whacks his best friend in his house in the back of his head with the weirdo Joey Calco, right? Okay. So now things are changing for him in his head, I'm sure. And I'm just using this as common sense, right? So now the guy that killed the poor lady, the mother, now kills his best friend, right? But he still just finishes his time, gets out of prison. When he gets out of prison, within like 2-3 months or right then and there, he gets picked up shortly thereafter for the murder. So now the guy that had a child whack another child, right,
Is on trial.
and the crackhead child, whatever you want to call him, that killed the poor woman, who wouldn't do what Jimmy did? I'm just trying to keep it 100. Like, who wouldn't at that point just say the truth? All right, this is what happened. You know?
Well, I want to give the argument that I heard from Dom Crea the other day. And I'm just saying you have to agree or disagree. It's that when you are in the life, and I'm the farthest from a street guy, but if you're in the life and you're benefiting from
Not in the life, they're children. They're not made members that
no, correct. I'm not disagreeing with you. But what I'm saying is, one, it does come down to personal responsibility. Let's call it what it is. But number two, is when you're in the life and you rob the Wells Fargo for $400K and you have the Cadillac and you have the Corvette and you benefit from said life. Nobody have ever raised their hand and said, hey, you know what? I made $300,000 this month. I'm going to rat. So when times are good, you get the benefit. But when times get rough, you decide to bail. That's Dominic's argument, and that's a fair argument. What do you say about that? We got to jump soon, but what do you say about that?
I already made the point that I'm trying to make, man. I mean,
well, you feel if I want to make sure because we got to go soon.
I think Jimmy would have ratted had these people not done the treacherous things that they did.
Can I respond to him?
Sure.
All right. Well, look, number one, I don't have anything personal against Jimmy myself, but the reality is that A-Light could make the same arguments. He could say that there was treachery with him. He's in prison in Brazil, and there's guys in New York that are snitching. He could make the exact same arguments. He was young when I was young when I got involved. Yeah, I was 18 years old, and the guys I was involved with were much older. And now that I'm in their age group, I understand how you can manipulate younger people. Okay, It is what it is.
Grooming.
We have a system of accountability and responsibility. If we're going to hold inner city kids that are 15 that shoot people while they're shopping and doing crazy stuff accountable and try them as adults, then guess what? Especially with mob guys, because typically they choose the smarter teenagers to get involved with them, or the ones that are better with certain skills. So look, they can make the exact same arguments. I'm not going to rehash it and go through each of their individual cases because I'm not a lawyer or a backer of either of them in terms of their public image. It is what it is. They snitched, both of them. They have their own reasons. All these guys, Gene Borello, et cetera, they all say that their reason is the best reason, by the way. Their situation is the one that stands out the most. And hey, if it hadn't been for this guy, and that guy, I would not have. Well, at a certain point, we have to say that we have a real standard. I'm a traditionalist. I believe in a standard, and that's what it is. Yeah. So let's move on to the next point.
Yeah, we're PJM. Listen, I appreciate you coming on. I'll give you one other 30 seconds to wrap up. I think hopefully at the bare minimum, you got to share your voice. We had good numbers today. I'll probably keep this up for 24 hours.
Yeah.
Great way to spend my birthday. Yeah.
I think you should really investigate A-Light and do it real this time. That's what I think. I think you would do a good job, more than likely. I think that's what you should do.
I mean, the only challenge with that is if I spend a lot more time. Like I'm more, where did you catch me?
He obviously did it. A real investigation.
If you don't mind me asking, where did you catch me? Was it NBA Buttman, Armchair, New Theory? Where did you catch me?
Common sense ever. I don't even know who he is. I just saw it. I watched it.
No. Where did you catch my channel? I had 3 different shows. Was it New Theory, NBA, Buttman, or was it Armchair?
And this is I enjoy to watch all you guys, JC.
No. So what I'm saying is my show. I'm not knocking anybody. My show's a little different. That's why I don't do a lot of lives. But I'm more of an interviewer podcaster, and I generally interview somebody. I have them on, and then I kind of move on, right? And then if somebody wants a counterpoint, I have them on. I don't know. Like I gotta go soon, but I'd rather like chat with Bobby Luisi today than like research A-Light because I'm not sure if it's the arc of where I want the show to go. But I'll consider it. I mean, I could and I have no problem having common sense coming into the next live if he needs to, and you as well. And you're always welcome to share your opinion. The other part is I don't delete comments. YouTube filters them, so I responded to a second comment you left. If you ever see a comment deleted, email me, Tom, a New Theory. I don't delete comments, and I currently don't have an intern, so it's probably getting filtered. So I don't delete comments. I think this should be very serious, and I answer every question if I can.
Fair enough.
I respect by the way the guy came at you, PJM. I appreciate it. You watch all of us. And, obviously you're a thinking man, so you discern the videos the way you do and come up with the conclusions you do. And I respect that. So, thank you for saying you watch all of us. And I appreciate talking to you about all this too.
All right, guys.
And PJ, have a great Happy New Year. And I appreciate you being on.
Happy New Year.
See you.
Hopefully you found it good. Thank you. All right. Well, that was interesting. Listen, I do listen. This isn't easy, man. I came on. I want to do a birthday special. I'm on 2 hours. I wasn't supposed to be on long. I had to talk to Bobby.
One of those, we're going to do a quick one that becomes, you know what, though? The numbers, especially as we were all going at this, really went up, and maintained. So obviously the format's popular.
Well, let me ask you this. So if I'm just making this up, and I got to reach out to McCallie because I haven't talked to him a little bit. But let's say, sake of argument, you and McCallie hate each other hypothetically, right? And I have you on, right? And you're the A-Light, and everybody hates you, right? And they're like, you're platforming JC, you're platforming JC, right?
Right.
And then I have McCallie on, who's your nemesis and rips you apart, right? On my show in front of me, right? Why doesn't the counterpoint get as much air as, like, for example, he said, and I'm not knocking PJ because I actually happy that he came on. He goes, you platformed A-Light. Well, I did have him on, if you want to call it platforming, but I also platformed somebody who was against him right away. Why doesn't the counterpoint get as much air as the actual subject, in your opinion?
Because within each of us, the emotions that drive us the most are anger, fear, unfortunately, these negative emotions. That's why the media pushes on that. That's why
movies. This facts don't have feelings, though. You know that.
Well, what happens is people use their emotions when you have a discussion between two media personalities, and they're going at it like that, or I should say public personas will say, even though they should judge it non-partially and impartially and go with where the facts go, if they have a bias towards one person, they have a tendency to describe it that way. When I was debating that Common Sense guy on Lee Cole show, the guy always minimizes anything that points in the direction of someone he likes. He maximizes, and I don't blame him. That's an argumentation tactic. If
that's confirmation bias, and
right,
that
yeah,
happens.
exactly. And that guy showed that one clearly, and whatnot. But you can see it with everybody. Everybody's going to have a little bit of that. If you notice with the last guy, I tried to tell the dude, I tried to tell the dude, hey, they're both the same in the sense that there's a standard, and they broke the standard. Two criminals are not supposed to rat on any other criminal, no matter what the reason is. And they both did it. Now, I would, obviously one has a different type of public persona than the other. One of them's more flamboyant and more, this is what I look like. And the other guy has a family now and kind of chills and does his stories. So people are going to like that style versus this other one. And,
well, JC, let me ask you this. We got to go soon, but we're to our mark. But let me ask you a question. So, like, part of the reason I had A-Light on multiple times is he would sit down with Trevor McDonald. Trevor McDonald interviewed Nelson Mandela. Like, to me, he's the utmost serious and most professional journalism on the planet, right? And on Nat Geo and these other places. Now, I'm not saying they're they're what's that word I'm looking for? Like, they can make mistakes, right?
Impervious.
Yeah, they're not impervious to making mistakes, right? And with that being said, it's like, well, if they're good enough to be on Trevor McDonald's show, well, they're going to be on the Armchair NBA, right? And it's like the reason why they don't go after Trevor McDonald, because they can't get to him, they can get to me. So that's why I think the confirmation bias also comes in,
Yeah, certainly. And look, when it came to their rivalry, if Calandra said, hey, you know what, Tom, I want to come on the show, you would have let him on in a heartbeat.
Listen,
you have an open forum, and everybody knows that you have.
Listen, I only talked to Jimmy once. He apologized for something. He didn't need to do it. I thought that was a step up thing. I don't know him personally. I did email him once. He says, he's considering coming on. He never took me up on it. That's up to him. I believe I would do a great interview with him as a pre-record long form interview. I think I can give his story justice. I think whether it's good or bad, or whether you agree or disagree, anybody who watched me interview, I'm pretty decent at it. I'm not good at lives, as you could tell, but, and that's up for him to take him up on it. But if he said, drop me a link, I would have had him on. So, that's all you can do, JC. You know that.
Yeah. And look, with me, I've always said the same thing to whether you hate me, love me, or critic or whatever, I will gladly come on and discuss my point of view versus theirs. And I've had times where I've had to say, look, okay, I'm going to correct it here and there. We have things that happen, we're coming off of memory here with a lot of our stories. Now I'm going to be expanding the channel, and one of the things that I'd like to have you come on and join me for one of my first ones is I have exclusive permission to take the old Johnny and Gene shows and do a reaction video to them. So I'm going to start taking the the very first one, and then have someone join me, and we'll go through it, and we're going to give a good media critique, like a professional, here's what they did right, here's what they did wrong. And then also, sort of the insider mob kind of guy or street guy, whatever, critique as well. And I think you'd be good for a professional critique on one of the shows. I think me and you and maybe one other, another guy, launched the first one. And, I think it'd be real popular because the Johnny and Gene show, they have 100,000 plus hits and views on their shows. Gene was at the point where he was making like 5 G's a month plus when he, he can do it again, but it'll be 3-4 years from now, whenever he's done with his paper. But, the point being is their show sold, and, I'll go through it. And I told Gene when I talked to him about it, hey, I am going to give the honest opinion if I think you guys messed up. And I told him point blank,
Yeah, and you
think the best stuff
have
with
to be able to
Franzese.
criticize because it's fair use.
Yeah.
That's the whole point.
And the way they went at Franzese was one of the things I told him about 8 months ago. I had told him, look, man, I understand that Franzese embellishes things, but the way you hatchet at him is not going to be good for your image. Now, they happen to have benefited somewhat from it. It boosted their name very quickly. But, so he knows that I'm going to be critiquing. And A-Light in a way that I don't know him. So you would, the first one, I think you would be real good for that on that angle too, because you could provide psychological insight into why A-Light's saying or doing something at that particular moment.
Let's do it. Well, I'm going to join.
All right,
thank
brother.
you for being here for my birthday. Thank you, guys.
Today, rain day in California is a rarity around here, but when it does, I get to chill, and stay home and not work. So
God bless. Enjoy your day, JC.
All right.
Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for being here for my birthday. Ciao.
Merry